Talk to me, Majestic talks. Come and talk to me. Talk to me, Majestic talks. Come and talk to me. Majestic talks. Come and talk to me.
Hello, and welcome to the Majestic Talk Show. I'm your host, Latasha Morgan, certified Christian life coach, certified professional life coach, board certified master Christian mental health coach, and a whole lot of other goodies, y'all. Today, this is season 5, episode 6, and today we're going to be talking about from scraps to soul food, the legacy of food scarcity in slavery and its impact on mental health today. Listen, our tagline today is exploring how the meager and often degrading food provided to enslaved people has left a lasting imprint on African American mental health and culture. We have Dr. J. Michelle Vann with us tonight, and we're going to welcome her to the stage. Welcome to the stage, Dr. Vann. How are you doing today?
Amazing. How are you?
I'm blessed. It's so good to see you again. I'm glad to see you again.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. Would you tell everybody who you are, what you do?
Yes, I am a speaker, I'm a coach, an author, wellness educator who helps women and the men that they love move from burnout to breakthrough and really begin to help them figure out how to balance that, their faith and their mindset and their movement. I had about 30 years in education and ministry, and so I empower individuals and couples to live their whole life.
Oh, that's awesome. Again, thank you so much for being here. That's a lot of good work that you're doing. We need that, especially with couples and in ministry as well. So, I see you have a little jacket with your business name on it. I just noticed that. It's neat. I like it. But again, like I said, we're going to be talking about from scraps to soul food today, the legacy of food scarcity and slavery and its impact on mental health. Now, this conversation is not about blaming anyone or just pulling up old wounds, opening old wounds, but we need to talk about slavery so that we can understand what's going on today and how we can move forward and heal from it because it is hurting us. It's hurting us regardless of how it started. It's hurting us today. So, this is a conversation that goes far beyond the dinner table. It touches our history, our health, our identity, and even our emotional well being. Enslaved Africans were given the scraps of the master's table, from the master's table: pig feet, intestines, cornmeal, and whatever else was discarded. Now that's nasty because I don't even eat any of that. um, Out of necessity, they turned those scraps into meals that sustained families and created what we now call soul food. But what was birthed out of survival has left deep generational impacts, both positive and painful. But tonight, we're going to look at the history, the impact today, and the healing process. And then we're going to make sure that we can help us dive deep into the powerful conversation. So, let's get into it because, like I said, we have 3 sections that we're going to talk about today. How did we get here?
Mm,
How is it affecting us now? And how can we move forward and heal from it? Okay?
Mhm.
You ready, Dr. Vann?
Let's go. Let's talk about it.
So now we know that slavery existed. We know that. So we don't need to just automatically just assume that it's just a myth. It's not a myth because we, like I said, we're still affected by it today. So, like I said, they were eating scraps from the master's table.
Mhm.
So intestines, we're talking about hog maws, and we still see that now today.
Yeah.
Now the cornmeal, all of that, we still do the cornbread. We're well
Mhm.
known for cornbread with stuff. And so now the intestines, like I said, that's chitterlings. I call it chitterlings. It's chitlins though, right? So I never liked that at all. I've never understood why we would eat something like that, but now I get it. It came
And
from
the
then.
crazy part is that something that was disdainable,
Hmm.
that was given to the slaves as disdainable, has now become a delicacy in some
Hmm.
areas.
Yeah, see, man, when black folks get stuff, we do make it better, don't
Come
we?
on now,
We make it.
they
It's
want to
not
have
better
them,
for me.
but they want everything we got.
Yeah, yeah. And again, like I said, I couldn't understand the chitterlings because they smell.
Mhm.
But it was what they had, so they made it work.
Yeah.
So they were rarely given enough to eat, so that rations were usually included the pound or two of cornmeal, a little molasses, and maybe salted pork if it was available. The enslaved had to make that stretch for an entire week,
Mhm.
a whole week. Historians say that adults often went to bed hungry and children sometimes fainted from lack of nourishment while working in the fields. Wow. Slave narratives give us a vivid account of this reality. Frederick Douglass wrote that as a child, he was often so hungry that he fought with dogs for scraps of food.
Mhm.
And Charles Ball said he recalled in his memoir that he survived many days on nothing but corn mush cooked in water. Mm. These weren't just meals; they were acts of desperation. Okay, that's just
Well, so if
that's
you think about it, think about, for lack of a better term, corn mush and water is going to be almost like grits, but just the level down.
mm-hmm,
Because grits is a little bit thicker.
mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, if you don't have nothing,
You eat what you have, but see, I don't like grits either, so I
you would
don't.
be
I
hungry.
huh?
You would be hungry.
I know.
Should
I
be the
guess
kid,
I
be the kid passing out.
yeah, I would have been, but I don't know. I might have been in the well, anyway. We would have, even though I wouldn't have wanted to, because it's not like it's better. But anyway, these weren't just meals; they were acts of desperation. And then there were the so-called scraps. Enslaved people were given the leftovers that slaveholders did not want: the pig feet, intestines, skin, and animal organs considered garbage.
Mhm.
Oh wow, what animal organs did they eat?
Well, so if you figure that chicken livers, um,
Oh yeah.
cow tongues, hearts, livers of other beef liver. All of those things are things that, if you lived in the South or had Southern
Uh-huh.
foods, you probably ate.
Well, see, I do recall the liver, and I
Hmm.
never ate that. I used to
Hmm.
throw it out. They made
Hmm.
I had yeah, I don't even remember what it tastes like because it's been so long.
Hmm.
Yeah, mm-mm.
But all of those
Yeah.
would have been internal organs that would have been, if they would have been eating brain. They use pig brain. They call it some kind of weird cheese something. Um, but yeah, I mean, so all of those things are things that they ate,
Okay.
and
So
people
what
still eat it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, but because you're used to it, they were used to it. So if they ate it during slavery, then I'm sure that they kept eating it and they kept making it even better and better, and they just passed it down. So like I said, people are still eating chitlins, especially different holiday events.
Mhm.
Don't put it on my plate, but they still
Mine
eat it.
either.
Oh, have you ever eaten it?
Mhm.
Oh, I've
Grandpa-
never.
my grandparents were farmers, and so we literally ate squirrels, rabbits, pheasant, quail, deer, bear.
Okay, I've had deer. My dad used to cook the deer. He used to do
Mhm.
the deer cube steak.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've had that, but
So
it was good.
it is. It's just a matter of
Goat.
it's, mhm. Yeah, we were in Africa. We were given a goat, and then they grilled it, barbecued it. I couldn't think about what I was eating, but it was quite amazing.
Oh, really? Oh, girl. You didn't
But
have to
we
eat
but
the goat.
well, you had to eat the goat because once they cooked it, it was offensive if you didn't.
Yeah, yeah, I understand because my dad and then went to Africa before doing missionary. Um, but okay, goat. Okay. But food wasn't only about survival. It became a way to keep community and culture alive. Enslaved women in the quarters often shared whatever they had, cooking large pots that fed multiple families. Gathering around food gave enslaved people a sense of dignity and humanity in the midst of oppression. Now, after slavery ended in 1865, the struggle for food security didn't disappear then either. Sharecropping kept many black families tied to land they didn't own, growing crops they couldn't eat, and landowners often took the majority of what was grown, leaving black families to survive on the same limited diets as before: cornbread, beans, scraps of meat, when they could afford it. Now, during the Reconstruction, though, and Jim Crow, African Americans were excluded from many food systems. In the early 20th century, when grocery stores became more common, black neighborhoods often had fewer options and higher prices. Yeah, groceries are high. The USDA reports even tr- even tr- they even trace this in trace it back to post slavery policies that limited access to farmland and capital for African Americans. And yet, food continued to be a cultural anchor. What we now call soul food was born in this period, not just from scraps, but from celebration. Fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, greens, and cornbread were foods often reserved for Sundays and special occasions when families could feast together as an act of joy and resistance against a world that often denied them both. Now, that is true because you do normally my mom would cook greens and cornbread, all of that stuff on a Sunday. Well, pretty much because as she got older she didn't want to do it during the week,
Right.
but those would be your Sunday meals, and they most people do have Sunday dinners to keep their families together.
Mhm.
So that's true, we still doing what we did back then. Do you do that on Sundays? You do the same thing on Sunday?
So when my kids were at home, we did. Now that my husband and I are empty nesters, we don't necessarily cook as much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Sunday meals are definitely different than what our weekday meals are.
Okay, so doing with your family, did you all gather around for Sunday dinners together?
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Um, well, growing up, yes. Growing up, we all, there was always big Sunday dinners where everybody came together. Um,
Mm-hmm.
then when my kids were growing up, we had good Sunday dinners, and then as they grew up and moved out, my husband and I were just kind of like, yeah. So we'll go out on Sundays, whereas we may not go out on we'll go somewhere a little bit nicer on Sunday than we do, during the week. Um, and sometimes I cook. It just depends. Um, but now that we don't have kids at home, less important, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It
think
makes sense.
I think that the when you think about those Sunday dinners, part of that was because we may be doing whatever we're doing during the week, but Sunday
Mm-hmm.
the time when our extended family could come together, and as an extended group, we could then have conversations. We could check back in. We could have reconnection
Mm-hmm.
that you may not be able to have during the week with people having
Mm-hmm.
schedules.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because
So
there would be other people that would come in, not just our house, but there would be, other extended family members.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, because then too, sometimes there will be the only time that the maybe the husband or the wife could come
Mm-hmm.
and visit from that plantation on the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
on that Sunday. And that was the only time they were able to rest.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at these narratives and historical accounts, what stands out to you most about how enslaved people survived on so little?
Well, I think, when we think about slavery, when we think
Mm-hmm.
about, food was one of those ways that food was something that they could weaponize.
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, if you do what I want you to do, if you, it was a way to manipulate people into doing more for less. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to give you this. I'm going to give you what I believe. And I just think it's the beautiful thing about Black people. It's just the beautiful thing that we have that is planted in us, that we can take some intestines and make
Mm-hmm.
them delectable to the point where
Mm-hmm.
people are out here, trying to figure out, well, how you do that. Taking greens, that we found. I remember growing up, my grandma would go out and um, she would get these greens that grew wild, and
Mm-hmm.
and she made this. They were called poke greens, but she
Mm-hmm.
would pull them out and she would make this stuff called poke salad, and it would be like these greens with eggs and peppers and
Mm-hmm.
onions. But it was one of those things that, as Black people, we figured out how to make ourselves survive no
Mm-hmm.
matter what.
That's true.
We're not, we're a strong group of people, which has kind of been an advantage, but it's also been a disadvantage. It's been a disadvantage because people believed that we were unbreakable, so
Mm-hmm.
they were always trying to figure out how to break us,
Mm-hmm.
how to
Mm-hmm.
break our will,
Mm-hmm.
how to break our mindset, how to break, all of the things that were going on, and how to break our family structures, because they understood when we had those families, we could do amazing things. When they understood that when we could go and we could pray and we could talk to God, that there was something that began to happen, and we had fortitude. So they, everything about where we were and how we were built up, they tried to break it because they realized it was part of our strength.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't realize that, you know, everything that you try to do to break, we're going to build a little bit stronger, and it's just another brick to help us get to the
Mm-hmm.
next.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That is so true. That is so true. So now that we know what happened in the past, um, let's see what's going on right now in our present. How is it affecting us now? We know it's been going on for a long time. So, um, now families, okay, so if we fast forward to today, the legacy of food scarcity during slavery did not end with emancipation. Of course, it should have, but it didn't. So it planted seeds that still affect our bodies, our culture, and our minds. The meals of survival became our traditions. What our ancestors once made out of scraps like fried foods, pork cuts, and heavy starches became soul food. Now, soul food is beautiful, cultural, and a reminder of resilience. But the reality is that when eaten in the same ways today without the backbreaking labor of the fields, it has contributed to health disparities. Because we're not out there doing that exercise every day, out there in the field, sweating it all out, you know. So So, according to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, Black adults are 60% more likely than white adults to be diagnosed with diabetes, 40% more likely to have high blood pressure, and more than 1 in 3 Black adults are obese.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on top of that, USDA reports that Black households experience food insecurity at nearly twice the rate as white households. This means that many Black families struggle to consistently afford or access healthy food. Now, I can understand that because healthier food is more expensive,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and we make less than other people.
Correct.
So I can understand why that would be, that we'll be less likely to purchase the healthy food. But then there's the issue of food deserts, communities where grocery stores with fresh produce simply don't exist. In fact, Black and brown neighborhoods are more than 4 times as likely to have limited access to healthy food compared to predominantly white neighborhoods. Now, think about what that does to the mind. Constantly worrying about whether you have enough food creates chronic stress. Eating low nutrient, high calorie foods because they're the cheapest options lead to shame and guilt. And culturally, we sometimes attach love and celebration to foods that may not serve our health. Now we do, because if we were celebrating with those foods, then we're going to continue to do the same thing now. And but the chronic stress, not having a lot of food, I can understand as well. And we are, like I said, we are more than likely gonna buy what's cheaper because that's what we afford. I, for one, when I go to the store, but today the produce isn't as great though, because
Well,
it.
so there's a couple things. So one, you brought out the fact that people have
Mhm,
high stress because of not being able to afford, various things.
mhm,
So when you think about racism, when you think about, um, just not making, not making as much money as the same person, same qualifications, or I might be more qualified, but the person next to me is making more money.
mhm,
All of those social determinants of health are all pieces. So where I work, whether or not I have the ability to exercise, whether or not I have the ability to own my house versus having to rent my house, whether I can live in a certain neighborhood, whether that neighborhood has walkability or not. All of those things are factors for my health.
mhm,
Okay, so those are all social determinants of health. Those are
mhm,
all factors. So that stress, the fact that I have stress on my job, sometimes just because I'm Black, I have stress in my home because I'm not making enough money to do what I need to do. I want my kids to be able to function. I want them to be able to eat well, but I can't necessarily afford that.
mhm,
So all of those things also lead to the higher rates of hypertension, the higher rates of diabetes. So it's a cyclical sort of thing that does have to do with food. All of those things, when we start to look at those social determinants of health, am I eating well? Well, no, I'm not eating well, which means that my hypertension is probably even worse. My diabetes levels, my glucose levels are probably not where they need to be. So it's just a cyclical sort of thing that we have to figure out. Okay, so how do we stop this and begin to go in a different direction? And so when I
mhm,
look at food, the quality of food, I think is what you were referring to, is not necessarily as great.
mhm,
So now, how do I begin to, um, do I continue to buy less quality food, or do I begin to start growing some myself?
mhm,
I am a proponent of the fact that I don't care if you live in an apartment or you live, on 10 acres. You need to be growing your own food. It is going to be imperative as we move forward, because we think that it was bad for them back then.
mhm.
Baby, some of this stuff that's coming up is
Mm-hmm.
going to make us feel like we back in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And we have not, we have a generation who has gotten really used to being able to go to the store and be, they don't even realize that beef comes from cows
Mm-hmm.
because they ain't never seen a cow before. But baby, you're gonna need to have some. You're gonna need to have a cow. You're gonna need to have a chicken. You're gonna need to have a garden in your back because we need to be able to control what we're eating.
That's true. That's true. That's so true.
I mean, right now, every week that you get on the news, you hear, oh, there's diphtheria, there's this, there's that, all kinds of things that are in the food. They just had a recall on shrimp. So there's all these things that are happening to the food because they're trying to do it faster. They're trying to do it in these big labs.
Mm-hmm.
Baby, I can control what's happening to the stuff that's happening in my backyard,
Yeah, that's true.
on my patio. You know, no, you may not have a whole yard, but you got a patio and some pots.
And we have a whole yard. We used to. My dad used to do that back when we were younger. We
Mhm.
used to have a whole garden, and the food was a lot better. It really
It is.
tasted better. I didn't even get I'm allergic to tomatoes, but it never bothered me as long as they were coming out of the garden.
Mhm.
But that stuff, even when you go to another country, I've been to other countries before, and I didn't even have any problems with it, with any of the stuff over there, because it's done differently. And even with other people going with, they had gluten problems, allergic to gluten and all that stuff, they were able to eat bread and all that without any problems, because you're in a different country. And all of that stuff that we put on our food here is not put on their food there. And when you growing it in your own backyard, isn't on there either. So why do they have to do it? If you don't have to do it, or when you go to another country, they're not doing it. Why do they have to do it here?
And so then we say we have generational things that are happening. We have higher hypertension rates, higher diabetes rates, and one of the things that we don't realize, or may not always realize, is that um, Alzheimer's and dementia are considered diabetes level 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what they begin to look at, when we start to look at those Alzheimer's numbers, those dementia numbers, they are equating those to the level 3 diabetes. So when we start to look at that, how are we having these issues within our families? Well, part of it is going back to, people weren't overweight. My grandfather had colorectal cancer towards the end, and he when they went in to do his surgery, the surgeon said we had a hard time getting through. He had so much muscle. What does this man do? He works. That's what he
Mm-hmm.
does. And he had worked and worked and worked, and it was just literally these people that were farming and that were growing these gardens.
Mm-hmm.
He was in his 80s, when this happened, and he was like, hey, I'm good. Whatever God does from this point forward, I'm good. And so it's, when we start to look at why do we have some of these things, we have some of these things because some of this stuff is in our food.
Mm-hmm.
Why are
Mm-hmm.
our kids obese? It's the food and the fact that they don't go outside. But uh, I mean, we was outside all day, every day. Don't come in till the lights come on.
Not me. Not me. I've never liked being outside. I would prefer being in the house. I would be in there trying to create something in there, mixing different chemicals and stuff
I was doing
together.
that, but I was doing it outside.
I was doing it on the inside and reading a book, maybe writing stories and stuff like that. That's what I would always do. My dad had to make me go outside. I would go out there then, but he had to make me. I was intellectual. I mean, even riding a bike, I can't tell you that I know how to ride a bike because I don't even remember. It's been that long, and I wasn't that great at it then. But I played outside sometimes, but it was because my parents probably made me. So, I had to do something that would make it a little better for me to go out there. But if I could stay in the house and read and learn something, it was better for me. At least I was learning. I might not have been exercising outside, but at least I was learning something. Yeah. So I think we've covered these questions that so I was gonna add, some would say that food has become both a comfort and a curse. What are the dangers of this dual relationship?
Yeah, so when we think about some of the food that we're eating, the fried chicken, well, we try to figure out why we have inflammation. It's the fried stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with a little fried chicken every now and then. It's just, is that our constant diet?
Mm-hmm.
What is our constant diet? Now, one of the things that we realize too is that um, as we begin to look at our society, we need it quick because we're doing 50,000 things. We're going to football practice and going to soccer practice and going to this and going to that and going to that, and so we're eating fast food. We're eating a lot of things that were never designed. Our bodies were never designed to process.
Mm-hmm.
When we were created, we were created in the garden.
Mm-hmm.
hmm And everything that we needed was in the garden.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so our bodies were designed for the things that came from the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of the things that we're eating didn't come from the earth.
Mm-hmm.
They came from a lab.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been genetically modified and they have been changed and they have been processed because as an American people, we have a desire. There's sugar in everything that we eat. There are artificial flavors, and so those are the things that we desire. You mentioned that you went to another country and the food tasted better. It tasted
Mm-hmm.
cleaner. It tasted more pure. Why? Because in those countries they also ban a lot of the things that we eat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You go to some places, when we were in Africa, you couldn't hardly find a sweet because they don't eat sweets. Their sweets are fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, finding cookies and finding cake, I mean, every now and then you can find ice cream, but it's just not there. And so some of the things that our palates, our American palates, and then as we look at people that have lower income, what are we desiring to taste? A lot of that sweet and salty.
Mm-hmm.
and and if our children are taught to eat vegetables from the very beginning, if vegetables are what they're introduced to, if those kinds of things are what their palate is desires of, then that's what they'll eat. But if what we've given them is tutti frutti and um, fruity pebbles and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, that's also what they'll desire. So it just really depends on the trajectory that we set ourselves on. And that's how we've kind of gotten into this. We've also, when we start to think about things that we've heard, um, you talked about the fact that there is love. We connect food to love and celebrations.
Mm-hmm.
We also connect food to those things of like, make sure that your plate is cleaned,
Mm-hmm.
whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not. You got to clean your plate because there's somebody that's out there starving. And we've
Mm-hmm.
created these ideals of obesity without even realizing it. If I'm full, why am I still eating?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah.
We've come to these places of, you know, um, when someone dies, what do? We bring a cake.
Mm-hmm.
When someone has a birthday, what do? We bring a cake. When someone, we bring food. to eat to everything. It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. You know, you get divorced, we bring you a cake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
so we equate, we feel like we have to feed those celebrations. And so most of our celebrations happen around food. We've really try to rethink how we even eat at church. You know, most church celebrations are fried chicken, mashed potato,
Mm-hmm.
gravy, uh, cake, pie. You know, so how do we rethink some of those things, because a lot of them have been equated into foods that are not healthy for us.
Mm-hmm.
They taste
Yeah.
good, but they're not good for us.
Yeah. And we eat them way too much. Like you said, it's good to have sometimes every now and then. Even with going to different countries, the sweet part, normally their sweet though is still isn't the same. They're
Mhm,
baking it at home differently.
mhm,
Everything they do is different from how we do it here. I mean, here they allow certain things in your sugar.
mhm,
You know, red hairs and all of that stuff can be in your sugar as long as there's a certain amount there.
mhm,
It can be there. When you go over there, most likely not. You
mhm,
know, so and a lot of their things are fresh.
mhm,
They're made fresh. There's like let's see what country I was in. Italy. If you
mhm,
people don't really do takeaway.
mhm,
So, like, so you can go to a restaurant and you have leftovers. You normally would eat it there. Of course, in American people, we don't eat it all there, so we want to have it. They call it takeaway,
mhm,
and their pizza don't even taste the same if you
mhm,
warm it up all the time because of what it's made with. You
mhm,
know, the cheese that they use. Even their desserts, they may be sweet, but again, they're using something different, so
mhm.
it still it tastes great and it doesn't affect you like I said as it does when you're over here, and that's why they look healthier.
And go back to when we think about that. So when we think about, there was a study about of all of the people that are over 100 years old, the
Hmm.
octogenarians of the world, and they talk about the blue spaces. And so when you start to look at that and you start to look at Asian cultures, one of the things that we realize too is that they don't eat to full.
Hmm.
They eat to 80%.
Hmm.
And one of the things that we have, you know, we eat until we're about to bust. Woo, girl, can't. Woo, child. And then we go to sleep. We ain't had time to work any of that off. So they eat until 80%. One of the
Hmm.
biggest things that they said, you know, is that we eat to 80% and then we stop. We push it away. Whatever we haven't eaten, we just stop. And it's okay. And so as we rethink how we process what we've done and how we've always done it, we have to really look at, is this the best for me, or is this just tradition? Because just because it's traditional doesn't make it right.
That's true. That's true. And then, of course, if we're thinking about traditional, is how our ancestors were only able to survive, and that's why they ate it. We can survive now on other things,
Mhm.
and so we don't still have to eat the same thing. Now, I love fried chicken, depending on who's frying it, and because everybody fried chicken don't taste that great. So, but I've started changing what I eat pretty much. So now I do love sweet. I do. So but I've started changing different things and maybe having fruit versus the sweet. But
Mhm.
I'm working on it. Like I said,
It's
I'm
hard
working.
because in America, all of our food has sugar in it.
Mm-hmm.
Sugar works in our brain just like cocaine. We're addicted to it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always looking for it. We're always looking for our drink to have a little sugar, for our, you know, I mean, you can't even hardly get a good, I was looking for a while, I was doing this thing where I wouldn't eat anything that had more than 10 grams of sugar in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, finding something, even if you go into a diabetic section to look for something that had less than 10 grams of sugar, And
Mm-hmm.
this was about 5 years ago. It's a little bit better now, but about 5 years ago, finding something that had less than 10 grams of added sugar was almost impossible. Literally, because the way we everything is manufactured in America, there is sugar in. Look at the labels. Just about everything has sugar
Mm.
in it. There'll be
I've never.
things that you'll look at it and you'll go, "Why does this have sugar in it?" It doesn't even make sense that it has sugar in it. Why does it have sugar in it?
Well, even the diet drinks, it say they have sugar in it too, and they're not even. A lot of people say, "Well, if I get a diet soda, it's gonna be better." It's
Well,
not.
but then so it's so then you have an artificial sugar,
Mm-hmm.
which is even worse because your body doesn't know how to process it. So now
Mm-hmm.
that goes to fat because your body doesn't know which slot to put it in because it's not a sugar. It's an artificial sugar. So it is a something it's a molecule that your body doesn't know what to do with. So it just puts it into fat because it's like, well, I don't even know what to do with this. So
Hmm.
we have these artificial sugars that are put into our sodas, but then we look at that and there's how much sodium is in there.
Oh my God, yeah, it'd be a whole lot of salt in different things. Even like this thing now we have the noodles, the ramen noodles.
It's all
Then
salt.
yeah, it's a whole lot of salt. A
That
lot
one
of
packet
salt.
is just salt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I never knew that. Oh, they're delicious, but I never until I started looking at the package, and I'm like, why does this have so much salt in it just for noodles? But I guess you can limit that by using only half of the seasoning or something like that. But anyway,
Ain't nobody gonna do that though, because then it don't
no.
taste.
Yeah, it won't taste right because you can tell the difference whether you put a whole pack of seasoning in there or not. And see, I said that because somebody told me that one day. They said that they just started doing like half the pack of seasoning and putting in the noodles instead. But to me, it wouldn't taste like. I don't eat them often. I hadn't had them in a while, but I actually had went years without them. But I just for some reason wanted some and I end up buying some. But they are delicious. But it's a big craze now. Those noodles are a big thing today. But they have so much salt. Now I wanted to ask, and this is not one of my questions on here. Now, do you think it is because this is done in America, because we put sugar in everything? Is there a reason for that?
Oh yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if I'm a manufacturer and I know that sugar is something that is going to attract you to my product, why not?
Mm-hmm.
We are
Yeah.
addicted to it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, sugar reacts in our brain just like cocaine.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, because you do a lot of people, even if they have diabetes, still need something sweet. I need something sweet. Yeah, you still want to go get it no
Because
matter
your
what.
your your taste buds get used to that.
Mm-hmm.
And the hard part is, so like, if you do a sugar fast and you begin to really look at, you can then taste the sweetness in things that technically aren't sweet. So, like carrots and vegetables, you'll be able to taste the sweetness in those things when you no longer are having those added sugars.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a good 21 days at least to get that out of your system in order for your taste buds to re-engage and to ignite so that they're now tasting the sweet and things that are just natural.
Oh wow, and it seems like it would be the hardest thing to do.
It is. It's very difficult.
Hmm. It is. So that's good information. I wasn't expecting that, but that is such great information. Because I didn't think of sugar like that, but it made sense because then I think sometime before they used to put cocaine in drinks.
Coca-Cola was.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about it when you go back to, so if we go back to circle back around to slavery, part of what was happening with slavery was they were trading slaves for sugar.
Yeah, yeah.
Sugar was a commodity.
Mm-hmm.
Just like rum, just like slaves, just like pineapples, all of those things were commodities that were traded in the place of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now that we've talked about where we were, how we and where we are today, how do we heal from it? How do we move forward from where we are right now? So that's what we're on section 3. How do we move towards wholeness? Um, because we can't keep staying stuck in this survival mode forever. So how do you think we can move forward?
Well, I think part of it is that we have to reclaim food from a place of not just I'm eating because I'm living to eat, but I have to eat to live. So I've got to now use food as medicine. So
Mm-hmm.
how do I eat the things that feed my soul and feed my body in ways that are healthy, not just convenient? So, again, going back to the thing of, am I gardening? And maybe I can't garden, but I'm going to utilize, the farmers market.
Mm-hmm.
Most farmers markets now, even if you're on SNAP or EBT, they'll take those. And
Mm-hmm.
I know here, our farmers market, if you have EBT or SNAP, they have days where they will actually double your dollars, and so you'll get more for those days. And so, how do you utilize the farmers market? How do you utilize these food giveaways that are giving away whole products, not just you know ramen and cereal and things of that nature, but how do you get that whole food and really get back to eating what is healthy for you?
Mm-hmm. How do you think that the food, how do you think it affect our spiritual well-being, not just our mental health, but our spiritual health as well?
Well, you figure when those Sunday meals, going back to that whole ideal of church was out, we went and ate, and we went and ate these thick and heavy and starchy foods. So when we start to think about, we equated those sleepy times, those tired times. Uh, it was kind of, we had church, then we took a nap. Why did we take a nap? We took a nap because that food was so heavy you couldn't do nothing but take a nap.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're back to an evening church or whatever that was like. And so today, we still come together sometimes around food, but we have to really begin to think about, if this body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, if this body is my vessel that I have been um, afforded to steward,
Mm-hmm.
and it is borrowed for a temporary time, how am I taking care of this temple? And
Mm-hmm.
am I? Am I doing everything I can to make this temple the best it can be? If I am a person who is in ministry, am I doing everything that I can do to make my body function at its best so that I can then be of service to others?
Mm-hmm.
And often we're not. Often the people, that are serving the most are, eating at midnight. And, we do a lot of things around church happen around food.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we shift that around?
Yeah, I eat late. And that's mostly because I'm working. But I do eat late sometimes. Or I've been and forgot about it. Um So if I'm working, sometimes I do forget. It's just like today, I haven't ate at all. But that makes sense. That makes sense. And we should actually do a better job of taking care of the temple because we have a purpose. And I always talk about purpose. We have a purpose, but we can't fulfill the purpose the way God wants us to fulfill it if our bodies are not in a line.
And if we
Um,
want to teach about things like balance and gratitude and
mm-hmm.
stewardship, all of those things are also, we find those evident in how we take care of our bodies.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I remember being in seminary and I was listening to a book. I cannot remember the name of it, but he said that we should take care of our weight and our health just like we take care of our spiritual part of ourselves. We need to take care of our bodies as well
Mhm,
because that's what's going to support the weight of the ministry. That's
mhm,
what's going to support you as you go forth in God. And it's so true because most of the time you do okay, most of the time you see us, we are not actually physically fit.
absolutely not.
Yeah. Because I'm not. I'm
I,
trying, I'm working on it.
my husband and I have been in ministry for 31 years.
Hmm.
And, the amount of pastors who, have heart attacks and,
Hmm.
have diabetes and all these
Hmm.
things. But it's, you know, again, we schedule and we do the things that we want to do when we want to do them. We schedule them, we don't, we, a pastor friend told us, he's like, every 6 weeks, y'all need to schedule a vacation. And you don't have to go somewhere real expensive. It could be that you stay at home. But
Hmm.
how do we prioritize rest? Because
Hmm.
rest is just as important. So, am I resting? If I'm not, then I don't have time to renew. My body doesn't have
Hmm.
time to renew. My
Hmm.
mind doesn't have time to renew. And so that rest is just as important as what I'm eating. Am I moving my body? What am I doing? How am I feeding my spirit? Am I feeding my spirit?
Hmm.
What am I feeding it? Physical food, natural food, emotional food. Am I holding in, all of the stress? Do I have an outlet for it? We talked about mental health. You brought that up at the beginning of, how is the mental health attached to this? When we start to look at when we get depressed or when we're holding things in, we eat things that are
Hmm.
comfort food.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we ate a whole tub of ice cream and we blamed it on, I just needed a comfort
Hmm.
food.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is there something else we could have done? Did
Hmm.
we have someone that we could talk to, whether that's a coach or a therapist or another pastor? Did we have a healthy outlet for that? Could I have went and exercised instead of eating a whole sleeve of cookies?
Hmm.
Could I have gotten a smoothie or a what could I have done? Could I have went and poured into someone else? So I think we have to start thinking about, in the body of Christ, how do we do things differently? We can't continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect to get a different result.
Hmm. Hmm. And expect to be equipped like the army that we're supposed to be. Um, yeah. Yeah, you're
I
right.
mean, there's no boxer that's going out here eating, 50,000 ho-hos and then coming in and expecting to win.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're
Mm-hmm.
out here training. Their bodies are a machine. Their bodies
Mm-hmm.
are being tuned in order to function in the way that they need to function. But we expect, what, God to just zap it away?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
make it
That's
make
true.
sense.
Some people actually think that God would just do it when he wants to do it. I've heard somebody has told me this before. It wasn't particularly about health, but it was just about something else. If God want me to do it, he'll do it. Like, I guess he's supposed to do it for you. I mean, but there are things that God has given us to do. I always like to look at a relationship with God as like a contract. He's gonna do what he's supposed to do, and we're supposed to do what we're supposed to do. When we don't, we null and void that contract. Then he has no choice but to sit on the sidelines because that's what you've done. You made him, giving him that position, and you broke that covenant contract with him. And we are supposed to do better at taking care of ourselves. Um, Especially since we're supposed to show the world what Christ is like, and we're supposed to show the world what the kingdom of God is. And maybe the kingdom of God in this earth, as the people of the kingdom of God, we're not as effective because we are not actually operating in the way we're supposed to be. So it makes a lot of sense because even what you drink has a lot to do with depression. I didn't know this, but going through some classes I was had to go through, coffee can also cause depression because you're always taking your body up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down because of the caffeine in there. And there are healthier choices, or just not drinking that much of it at all.
Absolutely.
It's just really what we're saying is in order to be healed and free, we just have to make a decision.
Absolutely. And walk there. When we come into the light, walk therein.
Mm-hmm.
When we have been, when we come to a place where our minds have been elevated and we understand that there is a better way, we must then walk in that better way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, there may be somebody out there that says, I don't have what it takes to walk in the better way. What do you mean better way? Why do I need to do it? What would you say to that person?
I think we have the ability to do whatever we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
What do and sometimes I need to have somebody to walk alongside me. I need to partner
Mm-hmm.
with someone that, an accountability partner,
Mm-hmm.
which may be a coach, which may be a minister, which may be a therapist. But I may need to partner with someone else that can hold me accountable, that can show me. I always equate it to this way. The person who has the funky breath never knows their breath is funky until somebody walks up to them and says, "Would
Mm-hmm.
you like a mint?"
Mm-hmm.
And I never turn down somebody that says, "Do you want a mint?" Because I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Maybe my breath stinks and I just don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make sense to us because our mouth is right below our nose, but we don't ever smell our own breath.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say that to say this, that often we have been so desensitized and have come so accustomed to the dysfunction in our lives that normal isn't really normal for us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would encourage someone that's saying, I don't really know how to do a better way. It's really about having those conversations with someone else outside of your circle that can see the things that you can't see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, it's been great talking to you, Dr. Vann. It really has. I mean, so when people leave this show, when they listen to this show, and when they look at or watch the show, because you can listen to it, you can watch it. It'll be on podcast platforms soon. And it's on YouTube as well. But whoever is watching, here's what I want you to know. We had a past, you're in a present, but you can heal and move forward and have a greater future than you have today. Dr. Van, let everybody know how they can get in touch with you.
It is jmichellevann.com. You can go right there, jmichellevann.com, and you can find me and everything that I'm doing. I love, love, love to see you on social media. I'm out there. Everything is jmichellevann.com.
Again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And guess what, everyone? You can get in touch with Majestic Talks at www.majestictalks.com, and you can follow us on all social media platforms. Thank you so much for watching the show, and we'll see you next month for the next show next Thursday. Good night. And again, thank you so much for watching.